All right, everybody, welcome to this inaugural YouTube Live webinar for the Democratic Party of DuPage County. I am Reed McCollum. I'm the chair of the Democratic Party of DuPage County. I professionally am the outreach director for Progressive Turnout Project and the founder of Postcards to Swing States. I live in Hinsdale with my wife, my family. I've been an elected PC in DuPage since 2018, and I was elected chair of Democratic 2004. So just some basic housekeeping. YouTube Live webinars are not interactive in terms of you being on cam or on audio, but there is a chat feature. And when we get to Q&A, our executive director, Sarah, is going to be taking some of the questions that you leave in the chat. So feel free to interact in the chat during the webinar or leave questions as you think of it. You can use it as a parking lot. And just going to plug that we're doing a similar session to this about what it means to be a precinct committee person next Thursday at 6:30 with the DuPage Young Dems as well. So if you know some young folks, anybody who's a registered voter can become a PC. So spread the word to folks who of all ages aren't able to make this evening session but might tune in later. YouTube Lives are recorded. That's what YouTube does. So the link that you use to join tonight, you can share or access this recording at any point. That's really why we're doing it on YouTube Live rather than just a traditional Zoom, is that it's just much easier to have this info session be an artifact that people can return to and share. So what are we going to cover this evening? Actually, I also wanted to mention I've had some issues today. So if there is a chunk of time where I freeze or the audio breaks out, Sarah's going to come on and let me know, and then I'll restart. So bear with me if that happens, but hopefully it won't. So we will talk about what a precinct committee person is. What does a precinct committee person do? How do you become a precinct committee person? How does becoming a PC help elect Democrats up and down the ballot? What support do PCs get from the Democratic Party? And then we'll take your questions, as I mentioned. Just put those into the chat either at the end or throughout, and Sarah's going to grab those, and then she will moderate the chat by reading the questions you leave in the chat. All right, so what is a PC? And PC is the term that most people use for precinct committee person. A precinct committee person is the grassroots representative of their political party within a local precinct. So a precinct is the smallest unit in Illinois. You know, if you think of DuPage County, there are over 900,000 residents. There are 600 precincts in DuPage County, so they average about 1,500 people or about 11 registered. So, guess year people have an opportunity to get elected on 17th primary next year. One thing that precinct committee people can do, the sort of one of the primary responsibilities is to be able to cast votes at the county central committee or convention to elect county party officers is sort of one of the main things that usually comes up in the conventions. So that is myself as chair. We have an elected vice chair and a treasurer. So that is something that only PCs, only elected PCs can do, is vote in that convention, which occurs in the spring after even year primaries. So there's a range of days. I think I have those on a later slide, but it's something in like late April or early May when that county convention is. So I'm going to talk about the responsibilities of PC. Sort of a high level, what do PCs do? Frequently, PCs are active members of township democratic organizations. They help identify volunteers. Often they're some of the first folks to hear about people that are interested in running for office, and they really support the work to get our Democrats elected and to make sure voters hear about our August 5th. Will continue until the end of October. And then PCs are also instrumental in identifying people that would be good election judges, so that we can get election judges from ideally every precinct, Democratic election judges, to make sure that we're monitoring and assisting with our elections. And poll watchers isn't on here, but that's something else that the PCs can often be helpful in doing, is recruiting poll watchers. So PCs are a point of contact for party information, distributing campaign materials, things like yard signs, answering voters' questions about candidates and party platforms. So you can think of what a PC does is really the face of the Democratic Party in the neighborhood, in terms of making sure people are kind of aware who our candidates are, that voters have access to early voting information, candidate material, yard signs. You're often the person that folks will ask if they have questions about what the Democrats, who the Democrats are that are running. So how do you become a PC? I'm going to go into much more depth in terms of that. That was just kind of an overview, but I want to talk about how do you actually become a precinct committee person, and then we'll go into like, and you should see there's a time to yeah, you would circulate petitions and file those during this time frame between October 27th and November 3rd. That's a Monday to Monday. Just you have to either drive over to the county building in Wheaton, or a lot of times your township chair might organize PC petitions and take them over all together. But you only need to get 10 signatures. And so if you are married, that's 2 signatures right there if you're both registered and citizens, or if you have children that are registered to vote at your address that are over 18. But it's really easy to get a list of strong Democrats in your neighborhood and to get at least signatures. We recommend getting more like 20, just to make sure that if any of them are challenged, which pretty much never happens for PCs, but you might as well get more than 10, meet some of your neighbors who are strong Democrats. So that's very easy to do. To be a PC, you must be a registered voter in the precinct where you are running. You also have to be affiliated with the Democratic Party. So what that means from a legal standpoint, since we don't have actual party registration, is it's pretty loose. It means that you in the primary yourself on March 18th, you use the petitions for any Republican candidates run for office as a Republican. So if you're on this call, none of those are going to be concerning to you. The one to watch out for is, a lot of us believe that ballot access should be kind of open, and it's just a pain to have to circulate so many petitions. So it might be that a Republican candidate comes by and asks you to circulate, and I wouldn't do that, because then that would technically prohibit you from being a PC if that really came up. But you will be on the ballot in your precinct if you get those signatures and submit the paperwork. I'll kind of go through that paperwork, but it's really easy. Then you see your name on the ballot in your precinct, and the only people that see that on their ballots are people that vote in the precinct in March that ask for a Democratic ballot. So your neighbors who vote in the Democratic primary will be the ones that see your name on the ballot. There's not just one ballot. People will request either a Republican or a Democratic ballot or a nonpartisan ballot. And so this is important. So anybody can run for PC. You don't need my permission. You don't need anybody else's permission. But our ask is that we would strongly reach out to your Democratic township organization to see the PC in your about 40 banks in DuPage 600 currently have a PC. So there's a third chance that you live in a precinct that doesn't have a local volunteer elected precinct committee person. So, if you live in one of those 40% of the precincts that do, some of those PCs may or may not be interested in running for re-election. They might be interested in passing the torch. But this won't be a waste of your time, even if you have a PC that very much wants to continue to do it, and even if you're willing to sort of defer and not run against them. You can still become a PC by being appointed to a vacant precinct nearby after the county convention next spring. And these are the dates where the convention will be held, which is for elected PCs between April 15th and May 6th. So, and if you know that you're always out of town during that time, it's not the end of the world if you're not able to come. It's not the most important thing that a PC does is come and vote in the convention. It's just that only elected PCs are able to do that. So, so basically, don't worry at this point whether or not you are in a precinct that has an elected PC. We would love to appoint you to a nearby, often adjacent precinct that you would adopt. And from that point on, you are just like any elected PC. From the party, I guess I didn't mention that you can find the Township Democratic Organization's information if you don't already know what township you're in on our website, which is DuPageDemocrats.com. So if you're not sure what township you're in, you can just go to our website and find the Democratic Organization and reach out. We're also going to share information, your information, since you're on this webinar, with your township after the fact, so that they might reach out to you, but we want to make sure that you can reach out as well. So the county clerk's website has the petition packet for candidates, including a packet for precinct committee people. Your township Demworks can share this. If you reach out to us after the call, we can share it, or we'll throw it into the chat potentially. But the forms that you need to submit start with a statement of candidacy. It's really easy. You throw your name in that top line. You put your township in there. You know, we'll let you know what precinct you live in. There's a number that your precinct is. You say you're part of the Democratic Party. You just put your address in there. And then, you know, if you haven't had a name change recently, you skip on down and you get the bottom portion. You don't fill out your presence of it. We'll have notary hours at stream who at the Downers Grove Township office as a notary, and there are notaries in a lot of banks or libraries as well. So it's not a huge hurdle to make sure that you have access to a notary. And that's the statement of candidacy. It just basically says that you're running in that precinct as the Democratic Party precinct committee person. There's an oath of registration as a registration officer, so you just get that notarized as well. I'll circle back to what this means, but one of the things that is unique about being a PC is that you are a voter registrar. So I'll talk about what that means later. There's an optional loyalty oath, which is a holdover from McCarthyism, I think. It's essentially, it's completely optional. I don't know why it hasn't been removed from Illinois statute, but it basically just says you're not a communist that's intent on overthrowing the government. So every candidate in Illinois has the option to fill that out or not. That's the legacy. Both parties have that in their petition packets, Democrat and Republican. Okay, and here's the main thing, which is your petitions. So you basically fill your name at the top, enter the same information that's on of candidates at the top, and then you can sign your own name, print your, and you can spouse, any children that are registered to vote in your house. People need to live in your precinct to be able to sign. They need to be registered, and they need to be a registered voter in your precinct. To do that, we recommend getting more like 20 than 10, and then you get these. So you would print off 2 pages, and you would get these notarized. Okay, cool. And then there is the certificate of deletions, which you can absolutely ignore. This is really for candidates running for like governor and statewide office that want to make sure that they can only file 5,000, I think, and they want to make sure 10,000 or something. So if you realize that somebody wasn't registered or they don't live in your precinct and there was a mistake, you can specifically remove those, but there is literally no use case where that makes sense as a PC, because if you submitted 50 signatures and you knew that 25 of them were bad for some reason because you didn't know where your precinct boundaries were, you could still submit all 50 and it would be absolutely fine. They just need to find 10 valid signatures. Are really out when there's some maximum, you know, and you're part of that. Okay, to become an appointed PC, and this again is if after this webinar, if you're really interested in being a PC, you reach out to your township org. They'll have your information as they start to circle back to existing PCs. You know, they might let you know right away that there's definitely a PC already in your precinct who wants to run again. Would you be willing to wait and then get appointed? So at that point, after the convention next spring, and then after the next township monthly meeting, the county chair, which is myself, in consultation with the township chair, the township Democratic Organization chair, has the authority to fill that vacancy. So at that point, all I have to do after consulting with the township chair, usually they send that information to me, is I just send an email to the clerk's office and voila, you're an appointed PC. That's as easy as it is. To be an appointed PC, you have to live in DuPage County and be a registered voter, and you can only be appointed within the township where your precinct is located. So DuPage County looks like a tic-tac-toe board. There's 9 townships, and usually there's only 40 PCs that you're to a precinct less than like from you, the 3 Street and the bar. The township meeting 30 days after the convention, so that's to prevent some kind of shenanigans or stacking the county with my favorite people. But essentially, it would be sometime in the spring, or the latest would be June, where we could appoint you to be a PC in the event that you are in a precinct where another PC doesn't want to retire. And then you still have the right legally, absolutely, if you want to run as a PC anyway, we can have a contested primary where you run against somebody. You know, it's pretty rare, but that is your legal right. Okay, here's the meat. How does becoming a precinct committee person help elect Democrats up and down the ballot? So you're here because you are, you know, horrified about what's happening in our country with Donald Trump. The Republicans were sliding towards authoritarianism. You want to do your part, and you've been told, or hopefully you've been told, or I'm telling you, that being a PC is one of the most important single steps you can take. It's not an overwhelming commitment, but it makes a huge difference. And sort of one of the great selling points about being a PC is that you can really tailor it to to your schedule, like what time you have. You can make a ton out of it, or even doing kind of closer to the bare minimum can still be really, really helpful, especially right before elections. So you should never feel guilty as a PC that you can't do as much as you would like. It can fit into everybody's schedule. So like I said, again, 60% of precincts don't even have a single person doing that. So especially in those cases, whatever you're able to do is better than nobody doing it. So PCs help elect Democrats. This is a little bit of an overview. Again, you're the beating heart of the Democratic Party of DuPage County. You are the members of our party. You know, there is nothing that PCs are technically required to do. There's nothing that you like have to do. You will not get in trouble. You are a volunteer. You know, it gives you the ability to vote at the convention. Everything else that you do are asks that we make, and sort of suggestions and things that can help you on your quest to make the biggest impact that you can have in terms of helping us get Democrats elected up and down the ballot. There are norms and best practices, so it's not entirely, you know, make it up as you go along. Like, we would absolutely be able to give you advice in terms of like, well, if you only have a little bit of time, this is the most important thing. If you can put your heart and soul into this, you can really, there's almost no limit to how much you can put into being a PC. And there really is a roadmap in terms of what that looks like. So I'm gonna go through that. This isn't a training, but even newer PCs might get a lot out of this, but it's really designed for you if you're interested in being a PC to really understand what that looks like, and understanding what a PC can do is really the best way to know whether it's something that would be a good fit for you. Most PCs spend a lot of their time during petition season, which is right now into October of the odd year, and then in the weeks leading up to primary elections, and in the final weeks leading up to general elections. So those are the times where you're really the most valuable, is petition season, so this fall, and then in the final month leading up to mid-March, the primary, and then in the final month or so, or really the last 2 weeks, leading up to the general election every 2 years as well. This doesn't mention that, but we had consolidated local elections in the spring this year. So the spring elections are also in odd years a really important time for PCs to be out there, because when we have school board elections, municipal elections, township elections, which are every 4 years, very few people know who the candidates are. So that's one of the times where you can make the biggest impact, is in those local elections. And I'll mention this as well, is that because we have so many wonderful PCs, and townships do a great job of making sure that precincts that don't have a PC get walked, and that we're still doing good work to reach those voters through often existing PCs taking on additional responsibilities in addition to their own precinct. We had 49 Democrats on the ballot on April 1st, and all 49 of them won. So we are in the midst of a banner year in terms of our success as the Democratic Party, and we really want to build on that with your help. Okay, so I'm going to go deeper into what PCs do to help the Democratic Party and elect Democrats. I'm going to split this into 2 categories, which is really helpful for me. The first is some of the things you can do as a PC are really more long-term. You're supporting the growth and the success of the Democratic Party, including making sure we have free and fair elections. So think of that as like the infrastructure and a long-term investment. So recruiting more volunteers, and making sure that we have election judges. So I'll go into those in more depth. And then I'm going to talk about the second bucket, which is really making sure we win the next upcoming elections. And that is about supporting candidates within the particular election cycle. So we'll talk about those things too. In terms of supporting democracy and the party, these are 3 keys. Electing county party officers, so that's really important. Is making sure that we have good leadership for the county Democratic organization. That's myself, our vice chair Diane McGuire, and our treasurer Ilsa Mesner. The 3 officers, we're all volunteers, and to be elected officers, we also have to be elected PCs. So we are choosing from amongst the few hundred PCs that we have to elect volunteer leaders of the organization. It's like having a full-time job that's unpaid, and but it's really important to make sure that you get to have a voice in that. Something else that's really important is expanding the local Democratic community. So inviting voters to events, building an email list of people in your precinct that are like-minded that you can invite to come to candidate meet and greets that might help you before the election, put door hangers with candidate lit on your neighbors' doors, recruiting volunteers. So making sure that your yard signs are well, that's not as long-term, but yeah, basically like as an organizer, PCs are organizers, you're basically sort of saying, how can you bring more people from your precinct in, invite them to the township Democratic organization's monthly meeting, which are like the community, the communities that meet monthly locally. And then I said earlier, recruiting election judges and poll watchers. It's really important. Anybody can apply to be an election judge. So that wasn't the case decades ago, but really at this point, anybody can be an election judge. So the main practical application is helping to identify people that would be willing to be election judges. Election judges get paid $250 to do that. So that's often pretty enticing for folks, even high school students, if they have a good enough GPA and they're juniors or seniors, I believe, can be election judges. They get training for that, and it's a great experience for folks of any age. Recruiting poll watchers are, it's another important responsibility. Make sure we have poll watchers to maintain free and fair elections. Some work that you can do, it's entirely optional as a PC, is to promote permanent vote by mail. So we have a huge advantage in DuPage County in terms of far more, about twice as many Democrats are set up to always get a mail ballot than Republicans. And that is a huge advantage, especially for our local elections. But it's a great way for folks that typically only vote in like a presidential election to, if we get them to sign up for a permanent vote by mail ballot, they're much more likely to vote in the midterm elections and our local elections. IDing voters, and I don't mean voter ID, I mean talking to a voter to find out whether they typically support Democrats, Republicans, or whether they're truly swing voters, is an extremely helpful way to make sure that future voter contact is more efficient. That is a way to allow all of our candidates to know who they should really prioritize for persuasion, who they should stay away from because it's just a lost cause, they love Donald Trump, or who are the swing voters that might decide the election. And even knowing people that are reliable Democrats is really, really valuable because we can recruit them to get involved, or if they're solid Democrats that often don't vote in every election, that is exactly who we want to be talking to before the general election to make sure that they actually go and cast their ballot and hopefully sign up for permanent vote by mail. So IDing voters means having a conversation just to talk to them and find out whether they're really Democrats, Republicans, or somewhere in between. We have a good idea for the folks who vote reliably in primaries because they have to pull a Democrat or a Republican ballot. So if somebody's pulled a Republican ballot in every single primary for 10 years, they're probably a Republican. And same thing if they do that on the Democratic side. But over like 2/3 of voters don't vote in primaries at all. So for those folks, we have modeling that estimates it, but a lot of times we just don't know. And so that's one thing that PCs can be doing is, excuse me, having those conversations. Okay, so this is a sort of standalone slide about voter registration. There's a little bit to unpack. So precinct committee persons have deputy and as a deputy registrar, you can accept the registration of qualified residents of the state, except during the 27 days preceding an election. So prior to like literally the internet and smartphones, this was a pretty important function because it was generally paper forms that people would use to get registered to vote. So the Motor Voter Act was passed by President Bill Clinton in the 90s. And at that point, states started to roll out the ability to have online voter registration. So in 2025, the overwhelming percentage of people in DuPage County that registered to vote do that on their phone or on a computer. It is important to have deputy registers in rural areas where there is no broadband or where people don't have smartphones. So there could be pockets in DuPage where you're reaching out to folks in a community where they don't have phones, but that's extremely rare. So the thing that you can do as a deputy registrar is paper forms, voter registration of you don't have to be a to that they win, and then you don't have to be a registrar to or in front of a grocery store or in the community and just give them your phone, or they can pull their phone out and you can have them scan a
Hey,
QR
Reed,
code. Yeah,
would you mind going back and going from talking about being a deputy registrar?
yeah. Am I still cutting out, or am I good?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that, everybody. So as a deputy registrar, really, it's a little bit obsolete, because what it gives you the ability to do is submit the paper forms for somebody to register to vote, rather than them mailing them in. But anymore, the overwhelming way that people register to vote is online, just on their phone. It's pretty quick. So you don't need to be a deputy registrar to ask people to register, to give them the information in the website, to give them your phone, to use a laptop outside of a grocery store. The only thing that only a deputy registrar can do is to have a voter fill out a paper form, where you then submit that on their behalf. You can give people paper stuff. So really, in 2025 of being a deputy registrar would be have broadband access to the internet, or smartphone, which is very much general case of DuPage County. The PCs more or less don't do anything different in terms of supporting voter registration than anybody else. You know, if you do site-based voter registration and you're a deputy registrar, you can submit the forms in. But most places that most instances of site-based voter registration just have laptops set up. So okay, so pivoting from sort of the infrastructure and the long term and supporting election integrity to supporting candidates. So one of the most important things for PCs to do to support candidates are to circulate petitions. Now, PCs are no different than any volunteer, but because you represent a precinct, that can be an area where you focus in on making sure you're helping collect signatures for the Democratic candidates in that precinct. That's a huge advantage for candidates to know that you're the PC doing that, so that they can focus their time on circulating petitions in other areas. So it's a lot of fun to circulate petitions, because you have a list the Democrat in every election can have candidates can get on the ballot, and all of our to get
All
signatures
right.
as well.
Would you mind starting again talking about supporting candidates by circulating petitions?
Yeah, I'm so sorry, everybody. Yeah, so PCs are a key part of how we get enough signatures for our candidates to get on the ballot. Even our incumbents have to circulate petitions to get on the ballot. Our governor is running for re-election. He needs, you know, over 5,000 signatures. So it's a lot of fun as a PC. You're talking to strong Democrats that live in your neighborhood. You know, so it's a great way to sort of really build community with some of the strong Democrats. Build your email list so that you can stay in touch with those folks, and help our candidates get on the ballot. So the other thing that you can do that's supporting candidates, which I talked about previously, is identify who the Democrats, Republicans, and swing voters are. There's this second piece in terms of supporting candidates, which is when you identify people as undecided voters or swing voters, or really just like voters, to them. And so one of the most important ways that we persuade people for candidates is telling them about our, making sure they have to understand why they're qualified, what key, you don't have to be that they stand for, but just making sure that you have the literature to give to the voter so that they can sort of understand who this person is, and just recognize the name even is a real key. And if they're supporters, you can ask them if they'll take a yard sign for the campaign. And then it's great when we have a whole bunch of yard signs for Democratic candidates, because everybody else on the street sees that, and that's marketing, and that is really important for people understanding that this is really the popular candidate that they should vote for. PCs will also often mail letters to people. You know, if you don't like knocking doors, you can mail letters, or if you have some people that live in apartment buildings or people that just never answer the door, you can mail letters or putting up door hangers. So I'll stop and just mention that, like, if you were really nervous about knocking doors and you're like, I don't think that I want to knock a door and have a conversation, do not let that be an obstacle for you wanting to be a precinct committee person. Because there is so much that you can do as a PC, even if you are uncomfortable knocking doors. I have, you know, a whole nother webinar on first-time door knockers, but I'd say give it a shot talking to friendly folks. But if you aren't comfortable doors, put up door hangers. PCs do that and mail letters. You know, even if you're not sure if you're ready to knock doors. Educating voters about key issues. So this is something that you know, can come up, like thinking of examples like when there's a school board referendum or the state constitutional amendments that we've had over the last few years. You know, those are times where there's like a huge messaging war. Think about things like the Safety Act, where you can help dispel some of the right-wing talking points that sort of just spread like wildfire in the communities. You can really help make sure that you're providing information, and it doesn't have to mean that you're an expert on it. Often there are flyers that you can distribute that have like factual talking points about an issue. From, you know, a referendum for your actual school. And if you think about it, if you've ever been through a school referendum, like funding good schools, and especially ones that are crumbling and need some infrastructure work, are just existential for the community. And so those can often be very engaged in how to but it's really helpful as a piece. Then you have access to that people have. The last phase of helping candidates is the get out the vote timeframe, or GOTV.
Would you
which
mind
is
going back to talking about, it was at the end when you were talking about school referendum and getting people
yeah.
involved.
I'm gonna try to switch over. Wow. Yeah, sorry about the internet issues that I'm having today, everybody. Yeah, so as a PC, you can be really, really instrumental in helping to make sure that things like school referendums, or, you know, when we had a bunch of misinformation about the Safety Act, or you know, the fair tax that failed, like providing information, fact sheets to folks in the neighborhood is really, really important. And that's something that PCs can be really a key part of. The last phase of supporting candidates is get out the vote, or GOTV. It's probably the single most important thing that you can do, and that is to it might not in every election, and that is just absolutely cool. For term and local election, where there are many Democrats in presidential elections. So as we through the conversations that you've had, or through modeling, reaching out to them and talking to them about the voting process, making sure they know about permanent vote by mail, that we're encouraging them to vote, just kind of reinforcing that idea that, like, it's a good civic behavior to vote all the way through election day. And then for the down ballot races, which are most of the ones we care about in DuPage, always continuing to provide information about the candidates, because so many people just pay zero attention until they are ready to think about going to vote. And then they're like, do I have any information? Or they'll look up their sample ballot and realize there's like judges that they've never heard of. So if you had dropped off a door hanger that week with flyers for those judges, that's a huge advantage for them. And they might vote for a Democratic judge instead of leaving it blank, because they actually have information to know who this person is. Okay, what support do PCs get from the Democratic Party? So we just talked about all the different ways that you can help the Democratic Party really, but it's not the Democratic Party, it is all of us, and fighting for our values and each other to save democracy, to make sure people can have health care, education, air, and water, as and Democratic DuPage County to support. He's like, what do you get? So, one is that we'll provide voter lists and data to support you knowing who to talk to. You're not blind out there. We know who the folks are that vote reliably in every Republican primary, and you just don't need to waste your time, having conversations with people who love Donald Trump, that think he's doing a great job. That is not something that we have PCs do, is going out and having conversations with diehard Republicans. We strongly discourage you from doing that. And I've been a PC since 2018. I've knocked over 15,000 doors, and especially in DuPage County, it's very common if you do interact with a Republican that we didn't know they were a Republican, where they're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm a Republican. I'm not interested in having a conversation," and you just thank them and move on. So people are much more friendly than you would think. And once we know who's who, that's data that really informs all the work that we do. So we provide lists that have a great head start in terms of that, and you fill in the blanks if you go door to door. Otherwise, we can tell you who to reach out to, and if you're going to do things like mail, who benefit to make sure they vote, and who they can. Literature, always make sure you do your own research. You'll meet a lot of it. We'll have information and literature and help assemble door hangers. And then we have, there are 2 Democratic offices in DuPage County, one in Downers Grove Township, and our county office is in Carroll Stream, where we have printers that you can use to print letters if you want to send letters, but also townships often will do trifolds or flyers with information. So that can all get assembled. So you don't feel like if you become a PC that you're going to have to go through, boxes of paper and a whole bunch of toner on your own dime all the time. There is support for that as well. And then community and training. So this is really designed to make you interested in becoming a PC, but there are folks in every township that really help train PCs. We do PC trainings. Your township organizations have monthly meetings, and they are really, I'd say most of the members are people who are PCs. So it's a great way to have a support network and not feel like you're, out there alone, upset about what's happening in the country. Every township Democratic organization has a monthly meeting. Page Dems, the county Dems, we don't have we have executive meeting with the old some seminars and trainings.
Can you go back to talk about a monthly meeting for the township?
Yep. Yeah, so the townships have monthly meetings, which are really great for support networks and community, and to not feel like you're the only Democrat out there fighting back against Donald Trump. So often those can be places where if you're willing to try knocking doors, you can partner up with somebody. Their meetings are monthly. As DPDC, we don't have monthly meetings because we have quarterly executive committee meetings, and because the county is 1 million people and quite large, we do more like webinars and events at our office and things like that. So okay, so we're almost done and almost to questions. I want to go over again, just a reminder about the next steps if you're interested in being a PC, and then as you have any questions, hopefully you already have had some and you've put them in the chat, but go ahead and put any questions that you have in the chat now. But if you're interested in becoming a PC, and I really hope you are, while anyone can file to run as a PC, we really prefer you reach out to your township Democratic organization to see if there's already an elected PC in your precinct. 4 of precincts have a PC, which 60% don't. Is find out what township you're in, and Democratic web page, send them an email. But all the information, reach out to you. But all of the 9 townships have email addresses and how to contact and how to get on their newsletter to find out when their meetings are. The township websites are listed on our website, DuPageDemocrats.com. And so no matter what, anybody on this call that wants to be a PC can become one. You know, you can absolutely run, but also you can work with us. And if you are in a precinct where a current elected PC wants to run again, you can just become an appointed PC. So get involved with your township, meet the chair, and then after the convention and the next meeting, they would let me know that they want to have you be appointed as a PC to a vacant precinct or an orphan precinct very close to where you live. All right. Sorry again for the 4, 5, or 6 times that my Wi-Fi crapped out on me, but appreciate you sticking with it. And Sarah's going to come on and read off any questions that we have in the chat.
So, who got a question? Put it in the chat for me. I know most of our chat was you telling me about not being able to hear. So if there's any section of the presentation that you would like Reed to go over again, that would be the time to get that info. And this is a really great time to get Reed and to get his feedback, ask him questions. Or if there's anything that you'd like us to go over again that the audio went out for.
Sarah, was it just the audio or was I like frozen?
It was mainly just the audio.
I wonder if my headset's actually malfunctioning. All right, well, we won't drag this out. We appreciate everybody for joining.
Wait, we've got one. Oh, wait. Sorry, no, it's internet specific. Someone was asking about what is your ISP?
No. Check the connection in my headset here. So, well, thank you all so much. I'm going to turn off.
We have one more. We've got one question.
Okay.
It's for the PC paperwork. Should we wait to sign it in front of the notary?
You want to wait to sign here. I'll go back to the paperwork. So let me go to the sections in the bottom, any of the sections that have the like state of Illinois, county of, and the SS, which all of them have somewhere, that's the part that you only want to fill out in front of the notary. You fill out the top portion in advance. So when you're circulating petitions and having people sign, you want to have filled out all of the top portion in advance. And then only after this people sign, then you have the bottom section and you fill that out in front of the notary. The most important thing is the signature. So, I mean, if you filled out County of DuPage before you get to the notary, that'd be fine, but you want to make sure you're not signing bottom portion. Fill out 8. So if you're going for 20 signatures, but you get 18, if you only have 5 on one other page, you just get all of those notarized. So don't worry about it having to be 10 on every page. But yeah, the top portion you fill out in advance, the bottom portion you get notarized after you have your signatures.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. And again, you can watch this again and fast forward through the parts where I am not on audio on the YouTube, it's the same link that you use to join is where you can see that recording or share it. As a reminder, I'll be doing another one of these with probably out internet issues. I'll go to my postcard office Thursday next week with the Young Dems at 6:30. All right, thanks everybody. All right, the stream is over.